Good evening and welcome to round 6 with the AK Racing Supercar Championship from Hidden Valley Raceway up north in the Northern Territory, quite close to Darwin. So we've got a couple minutes to go until qualifying for race 1, but obviously just to go over what we're going to be doing this evening. Once again, the super sprint format here from Hidden Valley. 2.87 kilometres long, 14 corners, although about half of those are just little flat out kinks that you don't really need to worry about in any kind of race car. But certainly the corners to look out for. Turn 1, obviously you're going to see lots of passing into there. And then probably where a lot of drivers are going to find and lose time are going to be from the hairpin in the middle sector onwards. And that rear right hand tyre will be mighty important. Not so much in the first initial sprint race, which will be 16 laps long, but certainly in the 82 lap race, or the feature race I should say, coming up. Also, just a point of note with the qualifying session for this evening, all drivers are to set only one time lap, so it's sort of a shootout style kind of event where drivers are only permitted to set one time lap in qualifying just to get it over and done with in 10 minutes time. Not too many drivers unfortunately out there this weekend. There's only about I think 17, 18 drivers out there in the server at the moment. And speaking of which, it's ticked over to qualifying. About to get going. Alright, and as you can see on your screen, qualifying underway. Just under 9 minutes remaining. Not that time will be too much of an issue, but Cortum will be the man to lead us away for the first flying lap in qualifying. We'll stick with him for this initial lap, and then what we'll probably have to do, at least for the early part of this qualifying session, is just probably hold the camera on the pit straight and watch as the times, we'll see, flow in and the drivers go past the start-finish line. But Cortum quite a ways ahead of the rest of the field. Obviously, another thing to look out for with this kind of qualifying format is going to be getting your tyres up to temperature, because driving these supercars in Assetto Corsa when the tyres aren't up to pressure and temperature, they are quite a handful. So that is going to be something to look out for in the qualifying session. Obviously, you don't want to obviously throw it off the road and end up obviously starting down the back of the field for the sprint race, because you won't give yourself much time to get yourself up the field. But so far, solid start for Cortum. Hasn't put a foot wrong at the moment. A little bit of a slide there out of turn 5. A little bit of a lock up there at the hairpin at turn 6. But no massive errors which will cost him massive chunks of time, but certainly we would have lost a little bit of time with the lock up and a little bit of slide. Now a nice wide turn here for 10 and 11. Through turn 12, which is that right hand kick now through 13 and 14. The final corner on the circuit is all the road. Doesn't run on the grass like a number of drivers have done. And the run to the start finish line, over he goes, and that is a 1 minute 5 dead. So that's quite close to a lot of the quicker times we've seen in practice, with a number of the faster times in the high 104s. I do believe we've even had some low 104s in practice throughout the week, but when I've been in the server, the quickest time's only been a high 104. And so far, top 6, top 7 only separate by 1.2 seconds, so not much field spread at the moment. But Cortum, so far, fastest man on the circuit. Munro goes P2, so currently Nissan 1-2. Eaton up into, now Delaney makes it Nissan 1-2 and 4. Thornton P5, solid effort from him, continuing his decent form in the super cheap auto Ford Mustang. And now it looks like we've got a second group of cars now leaving the pit lane at the moment. So we'll just skip ahead. Who will be the next group? Or who is going to head the next group? And it will be Payne in the Harvey Norman Nissan Altima car 103. So still plenty of time for drivers to settle. That might take their time. But now we just wait for these guys, obviously, just to go through their warm-up lap. See Hein there in the background of Machinery House in the Petronas ZB Commodore. And there's another car a little bit further back that I just couldn't quite catch a glimpse of. But Payne, the next one to set a lap time out there. Still got Ches parked down there towards turn 1. He should probably just press escape and go back to the pits. But 105.017 is the time to beat. And Ches finally going back to the pit lane. In fact, we're right on board Payne and see how he's tackling the Hidden Valley Raceway circuit. Now for turn 5. It's the nose in. Nice and smooth on the exit. A little bit of a late turn in there for turn 6 at the hairpin. Runs it out wide. Car a little unsettled by just clipping the curve there. Now turn 7 and 8. Through turn 9, now 10 and 11. And that is turn 12. This initial part is turn 13, and then the final part is turn 14 there. Out of the final corner, the run to the line. And Payne will set a 107.5. He's got Hein in behind him. And doesn't look like he's actually been given a lap time. So perhaps he's picked up a track cut somewhere. Because, yeah, it's not given him a lap time at all. As Dominionac crosses the start-finish line and completes his lap. And I do believe that's just about everybody. Yeah, so we should... I was told that once all drivers had set a lap time that we will tick over to the, obviously, race session. Obviously, there will be a little bit of a cool down, and there we go. So while we wait, might as well take a look at the drivers' standings. So as you can see on your screen, Reid continuing to lead the championship, but Corsham and O'Hara bringing that gap down at the last round. Reid not having the greatest of rounds. O'Hara was in fantastic form. Unfortunately, O'Hara not here for race 1 this evening. He'll be hoping to make race 2, but not making it here for the, obviously, shorter sprint race this evening, and that's certainly going to hurt his championship effort. Corsham putting it on pole position, doing all he can to close in on the reigning champion. In 4th place, got Matt Cotter on 10.69, Hein on 10.49, and after, I do believe, a track cut there in qualifying, he's got a little bit of work cut out for him in this one. And then we have Delaney in 6th, Munro 7th, Duro in 8th, Brock 9th on 730 points. So Duro and Brock is a little battle to look out for, but Cotter, Hein and Delaney not separated by much at all. And to be fair, they're only about 60, around about 60 points off O'Hara as well. So if they put a good run together in this middle part of the season, and certainly this evening, they could find themselves, or they should find themselves, in front of O'Hara should they finish. Then we've got Eaton rounding out the top 10. Flipping over the page, we've got Hall on 637 points. And then we have Lucas, Courtier, Thornton, Phillips, Keys, and Ches. Alright, as you can see, race is now underway. And Cotter leads into turn 1, so he's got the jump. Caught him down to... Oh, he's outbroke himself though. He's ruined his good start. In fact, we've got a bit of an off actually at turn 1. Number of cars off the circuit and around. And there's one of the mega fuel cars that had been turned around as well. So Cotter sort of was one of the ones that sort of triggered that. Or at least it looked like. A number of cars outbreaking themselves. Caught him back into the lead. Hine up into 3rd place after all that is said and done. Delaney in 4th, Reed in 5th, Munro dropping down to 6th place, Duro up to 7th, and looks like a little bit of back and forth in the mid-pack here. Indeed there is, with Keane doing all he can to hold off Birchall and Brock. And Ches, sorry, not Ches, Eaton there, trying to hang on around the outside. And now Brock up the inside for the penultimate corner. Brock getting the job done. But now he's going to have to contend with a little bit of slipstream. In fact, it looks like he might have been sort of balked a little bit by a slow Birchall. And now they're going to drag all the way down this main straight. Obviously, in real life, there's a drag strip on the inside. The main straight here. Brock late on the brakes. And up now into P9. And we've got Payne in, or just leaving the pits. Hall also in the pits. I do believe there is a compulsory pit stop as well for these shorter sprint races. So, good thing for them to get it over and done with early after that off. And Cotter trying to go around the outside at turn 6, having a little bit of a drift around the outside there. Courtney holding on for now. They've got a little bit of a gap over Delaney, who's now moved up into P3. And he's got a little bit of a gap between himself and 2nd place. It looks like it might be a little bit of a repeat of Pukekohe, as Delaney a little bit wide there at turn 10 and 11, and that's allowed Reed to close in once again. So looks like we may have a repeat of Pukekohe, where we had obviously the 2 Team Castrol Plus Fitness cars and the 2 Penrite Erebus racing cars going at it for the race win this evening. Hopefully, because the racing at Pukekohe was fantastic. And once again, Cotter looking to try and get the best of Courtum at the moment. Looks like Courtum's just stabilised things at the moment, as Thornton well down the field. And in 18th, fastest lap of the race, a 1:05.3. That would have put him in decent stead in qualifying in the race. But obviously, he was one of those guys that was sort of caught out at that first corner incident there. So he's trying to recover. He's got a couple seconds up to Runch. And then after that, there's the mid-pack. But in fact, we will go back there as Brock, Lauder, Eaton, Ches, they're all very, very close together. And there's a car off in the background. That's Eaton that has gone round. And now Eaton was sort of in that top 10 mix. So it looks like he's had a little bit of an adventure. Possibly been nudged off the road. He didn't pick it up, but we did see him off in the background there. But we'll cut back to that. Brock now, he's got Lauder all over the back of him. Now, interesting, Rabble Club had moved up in front of Walkinshaw Andretti United in the team's championship that we didn't quite have enough time to bring up before the start of the race. But at the moment, they're looking to extend that points gap after overtaking the Commodore running team there. Obviously, Munro has had some impressive pace throughout the season, but hasn't been the most consistent, while Lauder, again, he hasn't been the most consistent, but looks like he's sort of picked up his pace as well over the last couple of rounds, and they're now moving ahead of Walkinshaw Andretti United and looking forward as opposed to looking back. But Hall down the back of the field, so he was the car that lost out most at turn 1, and Brock just pitting as well on that last lap. Now up front though, Courtum and Cotter 0.8 of a second separating those two drivers. And also Birchall and Keane have swapped spots. Oh, and that's Keane that's gone around at the final corner. He's going to drop a number of spots. He might even have to 3-point turn it to get out of there. And indeed, he's going to have to reverse towards the racing line. And that's dropped him down to 17th. So disaster for him. We've got Lauder into the pits. And we've got Thornton and Runch side by side down the pit straight. And Thornton should get that job done. And he does. So Thornton now back up to 13th. Obviously, he did set the fastest lap of the race on the previous lap. But now he's caught the back of this very angry midfield pack. So we've got Crab now into the top 10. He's got Dominion out right behind him. And they've got Ches and Birchall just up the road. Now Hine was one that was able to capitalise on the action that happened at Turn 1. But he's fallen back a couple spots and he's running wide like that. It's not going to help his cause. And now he's got Birchall right behind him. And Duro having a good run. He's up in P6 at the moment. So one of his better runs of the season. And we've had, there's Delaney into the pit lane. Cotter and Cordham 1:05.3s. So they're very, very close to setting the fastest lap. But the pit stop sequence now starting to take place and take shape. But it will be interesting actually to see where Delaney ends up. Obviously, we have seen Hall and Brock in the pits. In fact, they're both very close together on the circuit. So I reckon Brock, has lost a little bit of time somewhere. And there's Keane as well. Obviously, he just had a spin on the previous lap. So looks like probably about 8 or 9 seconds separating Delaney and Brock and Hall. Hall sending a 1:05.7, Brock a 1:06.9. So Brock on that lap not having a good one. And back up at the front, see gap still around 7/8 of a second. But Reed now under pressure from Munro. See, Munro's had a couple pole positions, but a little bit of bad luck and some ordinary driving has seen him not pick up some results that his pace has warranted. It's another 1:05.3 for Cotter. Closes his gap down between himself and Cortum. But Munro at the moment applying the blowtorches to the rear of our championship leader and reigning champion. And a little bit of a mistake. Well, actually, I don't know if that would have been a mistake because he can take that turn 1 there in sort of double apex. You can sort of just stick to the inside, take it traditionally, or you can double apex it, which I think Reed was actually doing there. But Munro not too far away, even though he has that little bit of slide coming out of turn 5. And these guys have got our 2 leaders about 2.5 seconds up the road. Also got Keane now into the pits. So that's going to elevate Brock and Hall. In fact, down the back there, as you can see in the left-hand corner of your screen there, Hall getting past Brock. Lauder now past Bradshaw as well. So Lauder looks like he's made his pit stop. And, he's actually lost out in the pit stop sequence there, and he's going to have to fight his way past both the WAU cars. And he's got Bradshaw just behind him as well. And looks like we got, I think that's Runch in the pits. Eaton jumping into the pit lane as well. That will elevate Delaney. And we've also got Payne now jumping into the pit lane. So that's going to elevate Hall, Brock, Lauder, and probably Bradshaw as well. I think Bradshaw has pitted. And Keane also has pitted. But at the front, Cortum has actually ended up with a 2-second lead. So looks like Cotter's made a couple little mistakes in the past couple laps. And that's allowed Cortum to get away. And Cortum taking advantage of that now. He will enter the pit lane. Hopefully he doesn't speed in the pit lane. There's very late on the brakes. We've got Reed now also into the pits at the halfway mark. So Cotter into the lead. Munro into second place. And Cortum and Reed into the pits. Duro up into P3. He's having a good run of late in the Bottle Ford Mustang. 105 on that last lap. So his tyres aren't too bad. He was probably just a little bit caught out with that, obviously turn 1 there, sort of spread those first few cars out as everyone behind him sort of had to pick their way through, all was involved. But solid drive from Duro at the moment, same with Birchall. But those guys still yet to pit. They're in front of Hine in P6, Ches P7, and our effective race leader, Cortum, in P7. There's a number of cars, so that's Crab, Thornton and Lauder all very, very wide at turn 1 there. They're trying to chase down Brock in the WAU car. And Lauder with the move, having a look up the inside of Thornton. And And that sort of forced Thornton a little bit wide. Made the mistake, and in front of him, Crab running off the road as well. Crab sticking to the inside, so he's defending now from Thornton. And that's 2 spots, a couple hundred metres there for Lauder. Up into P12, and he'll continue his charge towards the back of Greg Brock in P11. And now we've got Hine into the pit lane, and that'll drop him down the field. And we've got Bradshaw now jumping into the back of this little battle pack. So you see Thornton running very wide and on the grass in front of him. Thornton right in the slipstream of Crab's Nissan Altima, and he'll poke his nose out from under the rear wing. And just a little bit later on the brakes, a little bit of slide under brake, and he's hit the tyre bundles on the inside, and that stopped him immediately on the racing line. And now cars are going to have to stop and avoid him, as that looks like Keane and Eaton approach the scene, but thankfully Thornton getting out of the way. But disaster for Thornton. He's having an alright run, but that's ruined everything for him and for the Super Cheap team, because his teammate is not too far up the road from him now. Actually, my mistake, his teammate's in the pits. There's another red car, must have been one of the shell cars that I mixed up. But Duro and Birchall in the pits, and that's elevated. So Cortum back up into 3rd, Cotter back up into 4th, Reed into 5th, Delaney back up into 6th. So Delaney's lost out just a little bit, because he was around, I think he was ahead of Reed or just behind him in the pit stop sequence, but now he's actually quite a ways behind him. And he's actually got Duro not too far away as well, 1.5 seconds, and that gap was certainly a little bit bigger than that before the pit stop sequence. So hasn't worked out for Delaney the pit stops, as he's struggling there on the exit of turn 5, bit of a slide. But he's on warmer tyres, while obviously Duro has just pitted. And Hall and Hine duking it out in the ZB Commodores. Hall up the inside, and a little bit of a hip and shoulder on the exit. Hine a good job saving the car as he went over the curb, and he lost the rear just a little bit. But thankfully for him, able to hold on to it. Monroe's continuing on in the lead. We've got Ches into the pits. And where actually will Ches end up? Probably going to end up around Bradshaw and Runch. So they're coming around the final corner now. In fact, he's going to end up behind them even further. See Crab setting a personal best on that last lap. Birchall trying to close down Duro in front of him. So one of the closest battles on circuit at the moment, just behind them. Hall still hasn't shaken Hine, but after the pit stops they've moved up to 8th and 9th. Munro now into the pits. I believe he was about 5th or 6th before the pit stops, and he's just got going. It's going to be very, very close between himself and Delaney actually, and I think he's going to jump him here. Yeah, he has. So that's Munro now up into P4 on the road on some fresh tyres. So he's got about 3 laps to close in on the Penrite Erebus cars, but certainly a very, very good result for the Rebel Club team. He was putting now that I remember, he was putting Reed under pressure just before the pit stop sequence. Reed pitting much earlier, and Munro continuing. But after Munro warms his tyres up, he's going to be on much better tyres than Reed in P3. But still, good result if you can hold on to it for Munro and the Rebel Club team. And further back, Hine under pressure from Brock and... I wouldn't say and, that's actually a lap car. I think that's Ches a lap down. So after early struggles, the WAU team starting to fight back, so they'll be ruining, obviously getting caught up in turn 1 there and losing quite a bit of time, as both drivers certainly seem to be out of position. As you see a new fastest lap there on that last lap. Cotter right behind Cortum as well. Gap's only half a second between our two race leaders. We've also got Hine and Brock battling it out on the circuit as well. Hine, not a very good lap that time at 108.6. So, consistency just hasn't been there. It's been his calling card all season, but perhaps he's just come in a little bit underprepared for this one. But back at the front with a couple laps to go. Cortum versus Cotter once again. Saw this at Pukekohe a couple rounds ago. And it looks like we're going to see it once again here. Oh, there's a little bit of a slide coming out of turn 11 for Cotter. It's going to give Cortum some breathing room. And I reckon Cotter's heart would have skipped a beat just a little bit. In fact, we've had Brock and Hine. Brock has gotten past Hine at turn number 6. Seems to be favoured passing place of Walkinshaw and Andretti United drivers. Reed sets his personal best of 105.2, but he's same with Munro. But they're quite distant from the front two. Reed being almost 3 seconds off the back of his teammate. You've got Hall down there in 8th for Walkinshaw and Andretti United, 105.2. So there's some quick times out there, but a number of drivers out of position. As Crab gets past Lauder down the field there. And even Eaton down in 16th at 105.7. So there's not too many difference between drivers' fastest laps out there. It's just the consistency at the moment. And I think for a lot of those midfield runners where it is very close in the team and drivers' championships, the consistency with sticking close to your optimal fastest lap times is going to be key. As it looks like Cortum on that last lap just stabilising the lead. He hasn't given Cotter too much, even though Cotter was a couple tenths faster. Cortum not making mistakes. As we look from the roof, looking back towards Cotter in P2. And it looks like Hine has gotten past Brock down there for P9 as well. And they're actually going to have Crab for company. Crab 105.5. Both these guys in the 106s are on the final lap. As a Hine a little bit wobbly through turn 1. So we'll just stick with it for now as Brock tries to close in. It looks like a mistake that we missed on the last lap or two has allowed Hine to get back by, and Hine probably hold on as Cortum will take our first win of the evening. Cotter will take P2, and then we'll have Reed, our championship leader, taking a solid P3. Munro, a good P4 for him. Delaney, a little bit of a distant P5, especially compared to his teammate. But still, solid points for them, although he'd be hoping to at least get P4, with obviously both the Penrite Erebus cars finishing 2nd and 3rd. So I'm not sure how that's going to work out points-wise in the team's championship. Duro bringing home a very solid P6. Birchall, a good P7 for them. A nice recovery drive after being sent around at turn 1 for Hall. He pitted on the first lap and put in 15 very solid laps afterwards to end up in P8 in the end. So nice drive from him. Got a big accident in the background there with it's like Keane, Ches, and someone else there. Hine in P9. Very inconsistent and uncharacteristic first race for him. Brock rounding out the top 10, followed by Crab in P11. Couldn't quite get by or catch Brock in the end, but still solid drive from him. Lauder P12. Runch 13th, Bradshaw 14th, Dominiak in 15th, Eaton 16th, Thornton 17th, Keane in 18th, and Payne finishing in 19th spot. And actually, Ches was actually classified as a DNF, so I'm not sure what's happened there, but Ches picking up a DNF in the end. Alright, well, we'll just take a short break, obviously between races, and try and sort some stuff out, and I'll grab myself a drink, and get myself ready for obviously the feature race coming up in about 10 minutes time, but I'll try and get back in about 5 minutes or so. See you then, and don't go anywhere. Alrighty, and welcome back. So we're just in the process of swapping between, obviously, the shorter sprint race and the feature race. Still waiting for drivers to join the server. and the grid to be set, but that's okay. That gives us time to go over, obviously, the team standings. And now, obviously, these standings are prior to the initial sprint race, so they're not quite 100% accurate, but these are the standings prior to tonight and just after, obviously, the previous round at Barbagallo. So, Penrite Erebus Racing leading the team's championship. Now, they were absolutely commanding the championship prior to Pukekohe, but Team Castrol Plus Fitness have been able to claw their way back slowly, and now within 120 points, or they were within 120 points, and obviously the win in race 1 from Cortum certainly doing their chances wonders. Delaney probably hoping to finish in P4 at worst, but a good drive from Munro in the Rabble Club car, which is important for them, because that will see them move in. I'm pretty sure Rabble Club will certainly move in front of Machinery House, with only one of the Machinery House cars here this evening, I do believe. So, and obviously finishing in 4th place is much better than what Hine was able to manage this evening, a few places down. Boost Mobile Motorsport, neither driver was able to make it for race 1, so there's no Lynn and there was no O'Hara, so obviously O'Hara, a bit of a disaster for him, was unable to make it at Pukekohe due to, I think, a power outage there, which obviously lost him the lead in the Drivers' Championship and cost the team points in the Team Championship. And obviously Lynn not being here this evening as well, that's certainly going to hurt them in the Team Championship, and that will allow Machinery House and Rabble Club, as well as Walkinshaw and Andretti United too, to close their points advantage and certainly make a very interesting fight going forward for 3rd place in the Team Championship. So that'll be certainly something to look out for going forward. And, well, speaking of Walkinshaw and Andretti United, obviously didn't have an ideal first race, but they both recovered to finish within the top 10, and I do believe Hall was quite close to having the fastest lap of the race, and he had to pit after the first lap, after falling to the back of the grid after being spun around, and I think Brock was also caught up in that turn 1 melee as well, which sort of put him out of position, but they fought back nicely, and are both finishing just inside the top 10, but they're going to be a couple of drivers to look out for, certainly, in the feature race coming up. Shell V-Power, DJR, Team Penske, Power Pass, Power Play, Bunnings, VB, Superpass, you can just truck in any name you want, because I don't know why Penske in real life have their car's name like that, but they do. They were on 1,170 points. Haven't had the most ideal round this evening, and I'm not sure if Ches was actually classified or was a DNF in the end, but see, with not the biggest field out there, they'll certainly pick up some nice points. Team 18 with only Keane out there this evening. Again, he didn't have the greatest run out there either, so I reckon that's probably a status quo between those two, but they've got to look out for Bodlow Racing, because we did see, I think it's Duro that drives the Bodlow car. He certainly had a good run this evening, well inside the top 10 in the first race, so that's that little points battle between those three teams certainly going to close up. And there's no Monster Energy cars this evening, which is a bit of a shame. Hopefully we do see a number of drivers turn up for this feature race that weren't able to make it for the sprint race just moments ago. Also, while we do have a little bit of time, might as well tick over to the calendar. And March 29 in 2 weeks' time, unfortunately, the final sprint round from Sydney Motorsport Park. So, sprint rounds have been pretty good so far. Throwing up some decent racing. Obviously, Pukekohe, probably my favourite round so far, with the Team Castrol Plus Fitness cars and the Penrite cars duking it out in both races there. And also Barbagallo, again, some nice racing there. And so far this evening, again, it's a repeat of Pukekohe, at least it was in the first race. Eastern Creek will be a new challenge though, so we're going to be moving away from circuits that are about a minute long and 3 kilometres and under to one of the bigger circuits on the calendar. And then we move into the Enduro season with the Bend on April 12th, Bathurst on April 26th, Gold Coast on May 10th, and Sandown, the final of the Endurance Cup events, on May 24th. And then the big season finale, a super sprint format, just like the start of the season, will round out the season on June 7th. Alright, well, might as well take a look at what is going on at the circuit at the moment. So drivers are just having a nice little practice session out there. And as you can see, the top left-hand corner of your screen there, Reed, into the 104s. You didn't see any 104s in qualifying in the shootout style format. The closest being Cortum, who was the first man on the circuit with a 105.0. So drivers out there just going through some rundowns and some checks, and possibly even going through some setup changes before the final race of the evening, and the big 80 plus lap event. And just like Barbie anywhere really, if you're driving over 80 laps at a circuit, it is a lot of laps, regardless of it being 50 seconds or it being a minute and a half. And Reed going back to the pits. And looks like we will be having another qualifying session. And as you can see, once again, Cortum will be the first man out onto the circuit for the second qualifying session for the feature race here. And, well, they got pole position in the first race, won the first race. You might as well jump on board with him for a lap of the Hidden Valley circuit. As, so he's had a good start to the evening so far, so it looks like he's going to be the best man to show us how to tackle this Hidden Valley circuit, 2.86 kilometres up in Darwin. So across the line, hopefully that traffic up ahead gets out of his way. And that is that Keen. He just has to move over just a little bit. Don't hit those tyre bundles on the inside like we saw happen to, I believe it was Thornton in the race. Now he can double apex turn 1. He doesn't use the curb on the outside. Nice and flat through turn 2, through turn 3 and 4, and now turn 5. Don't outbrake yourself. Don't lose the back end too much. The track does fall away slightly on the exit of turn 5. Don't outbrake yourself too much for turn 6, which funnily enough Cortum did do in qualifying 1. Doesn't look like he's done it so far. Now turn 7. Don't get too greedy on the throttle pedal. Nice and smooth through 8 or through 7, 8, and now 9 and 10. Again, don't get too greedy and run too wide. Set yourself up for the final couple corners here through 12, 13, now 14. A little bit of work on the steering wheel, but still rather smooth. Cortum now runs to the start-finish line, and he will set a 105.2. So good banker lap for Cortum. But as we saw in practice, fastest time we did see just moments ago, a 104.9. And we'll just have a look. Munro 105.3. And a number of drivers out there, including the two Penrite cars about to cross the start-finish line. I've got Reed 105.206. And his teammate there actually not having a lap time. So either he was on an outlap or got a track cut. And also got Delaney now 105.5 for him. So nothing really separating the top 5 cars, only pretty much 5/10 of a second. But I think Reed, Cortum, Munro, and perhaps even delaying it. All those drivers can find time, and Cotter as well. He's got to set a lap time, so he'll probably sneak in there as well. Obviously, second place in race 1 there. But at the moment, he's sort of having to fight his way through traffic as Cortum. We cut away from him, and he sets the first 104 of qualifying of the evening, 104.878, while Cotter's been trying to battle past Bradshaw and eventually making a mistake, allowing his teammate to go by. And we've got a car off down the pit straight there. One of the Walkinshaw and Andretti United cars. But Eaton now jumping up into P5, so good job, the DJR Team Penske driver. And with Brock leaving the pits, I'm going to hazard a guess that was him that was sideways on the straight. Now, look, Cortum still out there on the circuit pushing hard. We might as well jump on board and see how he's going in the final sector here, because if he's still going, it means he must still have a little bit of time that he could make up, because he's still pushing. He's not taking it easy. Out of the final corner, runs a little bit wide on the grass, doesn't cost him any time. The run to the line. And does he improve? No, still a 104 though. So 2 fastest times of the session, 104.878, and then that time 104.9. So he's travelling on quite nicely at the moment. And yeah, just looking at chat there, T7 not able to make it. Hopefully he can make the next round, mate, because the more cars on the grid, the better. As Cotter now jumping up into P4, got Eaton there, up into P3, so Eaton doing a good job of his better runs of the season so far. So he wasn't quite the quickest out there in the first qualifying session, but so far here, able to put together a couple of laps. Perhaps he's made a couple of adjustments since race 1. He's finding a little bit of time, only 0.8 or 0.08 of a second. The fastest time, but out of turn 5, he's gassed it up and gone around. And he'll probably go back to the pits with that one. But so far, good running from Eaton. As Cotter will be looking to find time. We've got Lauder and Crab down there in 11th and 12th. So nothing separating the top 6, only 3.5 tenths. We did see Reed into the 104.9s in practice just 5 minutes ago. So certainly plenty of time as well, with 14 minutes remaining in qualifying for drivers to make it much more exciting. Hall up to P2. Now Cotter P2. Still 1.5 tenths off. But Hall looking to turn his weekend around. He did have pace in that first race, unable to use it after getting turned around in the first race. But as you can see there, P3 doing a good job for Walkinshaw and Andretti United, and Cotter continuing his decent form. Out drove his teammate in qualifying, and Thornton now up into P2. So the Mustangs finding a bit of form at the moment. 105.0. And, well, that's the closest he's been to the front all season long. So hopefully he can find a little bit more time and mix it up with the big boys at the front. So it's only about 3.5 tenths separating first to 7th. And we know Delaney can find a bit of time. It wouldn't surprise me if a couple other drivers found a bit of time as well. Thornton only a 10.5 off at the end of the first sector. Cotter finding a little bit more time now, so he's in the 104s. We'll stick with Thornton for now to see if he can improve just a little bit and reclaim a spot on the front row in the super cheap auto Ford Mustang. Out of the final corner, the race to the line. And he does improve. So Thornton into the 104s, but couldn't quite find enough time to jump in front of Cotter. But he's putting it all together for the sprint race at the moment. And looking to improve further. As one row now to the top of the timesheets in front of his fellow Nissan driver. Not the same team, but the same cars. He outbrakes himself for turn 1, but a 104.801. And puts him 3/4 of a tenth above Cortum, who is in the pits, still 11 and 3/4 minutes remaining as well. So expect a few of these times from a number of drivers to improve. As Duro now moves his way up into the top 10 on a 104.9, so absolutely nothing in the top 10. Ches now improving to P11, keen off the road, and Duro going around him at turn 1. And one of the Rabble Club cars, I do believe that was Lauder, yeah, because Munro's still out there. That was Lauder that was around on the exit of turn 1. And not an ideal start for Duro's lap, so he's lost a bit of time there as well. Thornton, he's about to park it as well. There he goes. But we'll stick with Hall here, and he's not too far away in the first split. Jump on board car 77. He's got a couple of cars further ahead up the road, but he shouldn't catch them unless they make a mistake or two. In fact, he's getting out of it, so jumped on board, and he starts slowing down. And that's Matt Cotter going around the outside of him. So we'll stick with Cotter and see if he can find a little bit of time and get himself back up onto the front row. Nice, keeps it nice and wide for a better turn in for the final corner. Opens up the exit for him, can get on the power nice and early. And he's given himself every opportunity to improve here. And he has, straight to the top. Matt Cotter, 104.725. The times are tumbling, but the top 10 only separated by 0.8 of a second. And I still think we could see Delaney improve. We could see Reed improve. And with the way the session's been going so far, we could see anybody improve just about. So Cotter now to the top. Within half a tenth of obviously the pole time. His time in the first sector, but he's coming up to a little bit of traffic just down the road. In fact, Hall behind him sort of stuck with him after he slowed down. So he's looking to set a nice lap this time around. He's lost about 1/10 of a second in the middle sector, but still not too far away. He did put it together in the final sector, obviously on his flying lap last time, so he'll be hard pressed to improve. He didn't really find enough time, but he did improve slightly. All a 105.2. Not quite able to improve his position on that last lap. Still decent lap times out there. Very, very close and tight at the moment. So we'll just find our way through the field, Eaton slowing down for his teammate there. Munro and Reed not too far apart on the circuit as well. You got Ches out there, he's looking to improve, obviously DNF'd. Or at least the game gave him a DNF last time out in the first race. And 9/10 down in the first split, so he's a little bit off his personal best. Reed 3/10 off, and Munro not too far away. Oh, but he's ran a little bit too wide. We've jumped on board with him, and around he goes. So he gassed it up, went over the exit curb, and as the rear right just went over the apex of the curb, it's unsettled the rear and spat him out on the other side of the circuit. Matt Cotter out there, still pushing out there, but he's got a lot of traffic in front of him that he's going to have to contend with. He'll probably have to slow down. Delaney out there 4/10 down in the first sector. So that's not ideal for him. Reed improves, but doesn't move up the order. So we'll stick with Delaney, see if he can find any bit of time. Team Castrol Plus Fitness. Don't know if this is a timed lap or not, or if he's about to start one. He's got Duro just in front of him. Duro in P9, Delaney in P8. That's across the start-finish line. And Delaney, he was on a lap, and he does improve. Up a couple spots, up to P6 now, with a 104.064. can see just fighting the car a little bit on the exit there. What can he do in the first split here? Well, it doesn't. Well, the first bit actually is out of touch and out of position compared to where it is in real life. It's actually meant to be before turn 5 there. It hasn't actually given us the split time, so I don't really know round about where he is, but he is catching Duro in front of him. In fact, Delaney getting out of it. We'll jump over to Duro actually. We'll see if he's able to find any bit of time. As you can see on his well, if you can see it on the steering wheel there, he's not too far off his personal best, but yeah, he did lose it was about a 10th and a half off his personal best. They're still good for consistency, but qualifying, you just want to find that extra bit of pace. So got Thornton out there, might as well jump on board him as well. Just starting a flying lap. Running a little bit in the mid corner through turn 2 and 3. Now that's turn 4, that left hand kick. And turn 5, this right hander here. He was up just prior to turn 5, but he's lost a little bit under braking and through turn 5. Now turn 6. He turns it in nice and smooth. Runs it out to the outside. Turn 7 and 8. Within striking distance of his personal best, but he's going to need to find a little bit of time in the final sector here. Or a little bit of understeer through turn 10 and 11. And as you can see, it's cost him about a 10th of a second now, the final corner. Not turning in, well, I should say, turning in a bit earlier than what we saw with Cotter when we were riding on board with him. And there we go, aborting that lap. So Thornton is watching, perhaps that final corner there, to stick a little bit wider and turn in a little bit later and set up that long run to the start-finish line. Alright, Reed on a lap, our championship leader. That's right on board. You can see how he's going out here. Number of drivers back to the pits. Under 4.5 minutes remaining now for qualifying for race 2 here at Hidden Valley. The feature race coming up. Alright, just 10, 11, 12, 13 and 14 to go for Reed. Within striking distance of his personal best. Missed the apex of the final corner though. Now, does he improve? No. In fact, that's everybody back to the pits, and that's the end of the session. So now, just 2 minutes away from a race start here. 82 laps around Hidden Valley Raceway. It will be a very, very long race. And it will be interesting to see, obviously, the strategies that played out. Obviously, out at Barbagallo, we did see some 1 stops. We saw some 2 stops. In fact, I think we even saw a 3 stop as well. See, a lot of the corners at Barbagallo, most of the circuit, well, pretty much all the major corners anyway, are all right-handers, with only really 1 left-hander of note. That's around here. I guess it's quite similar, albeit in reverse, with most of the load on the right hand side as opposed to all the load being on the left hand side at Barbagallo. See Barbagallo being clockwise, on here at Hidden Valley is anti-clockwise. But just to run through the grid, Cotter and Munro on the front row, Cortum, Thornton on the second, Reed and Hall, Delaney and Eaton, and Duro and Birchall rounding out the top 10. We've got Brock, Ches, Lauder, Runch, Crab, Keane, Bradshaw, Payne and Dominiak rounding out the field in P19. Alright, as you can see, the lights are underway. We're about to get going here. away we go. And it looks like Munro's had a great start. He's into the lead. A little bit further back. Can't quite see what is going on. But the car's now approaching turn 1. And hopefully this time it's all clean. Yeah, just minor biffs and barbs, but no cars around at the moment. So it looks like all through cleanly. Munro leads the field. Cotter dropping down to second place. Cortum holding station in third. Got Hall in fourth. Reed fifth. Delaney sixth. Thornton seventh. Birchall eighth. Brock ninth. And Duro rounding out the 10. And that is your field here at turn 6. And now turn 7. So Munro, Cotter, Cortum, Hall, Reed, Delaney, Thornton, Brock, Duro, Birchall, Lauder, Eaton, Runch, Ches, Crabb, Keane, Bradshaw, Dominiak and Payne. And Munro, he's had a fantastic, obviously got away fantastic, and he's had a good first lap, out to over a second ahead of Cotter. Cotter himself has got about over a second to Cortum in third place. And looks like Reed in the background making a move on Hall. Gets the job done. And Hall coming under attack from Delaney in P6. But Reed a little bit wide at turn 1. Allows Hall to close in. But Brock getting by, but also running off the road. And there's actually quite a bit of a gap between so Brock and Delaney. 2.5 seconds. And in the background, it's 3 wide there. Bit of contact between the two super cheap cars, and that's Birchall half around, and that slowed this angry pack up. And it is sheep stations here in the midfield. As you can see, 2 wide through turn 6. Munro continuing to stretch his lead between himself and Cotter. Perhaps he's running an alternate fuel strategy and just trying to run away with it. Just in front of this group though. What's Brock battling it out with Lauder right behind him. Eaton there also trying to get past Lauder. And further up the road, Hall and Delaney duking it out for P5. It's all happening. The opening couple laps here, AK Racing Supercar Championship. So Delaney just shows his nose to Reed. And at the back there, it's like Birchall, sorry not Birchall, it'll be Thornton looking to make a move, and I think that was Brock off the road there. Yeah, it was. Brock off the road, down 2 spots, and elevates Lauder and Eaton, and now under attack from Birchall in the Super Cheap car. Goes defensive into 5. Birchall going to have to try and go around the outside. He's going to try and get him on the switchback, but again, Brock with the inside for turn 6. Birchall going to try and go around the outside. You're not really going to hold around the outside, but he is going to try it. In fact, he's going to hold it, and now Birchall will have the inside for turn 7, so good move. But once again, he's got to hold it, and he can't. He has to give Brock some space. He does so. Oh, actually, no, he doesn't. A little bit of contact there. And in the end, Brock just holding on by the skin of his teeth, and that has allowed Runch to close in on the pair of them. And Duro not too far away as well. Just further up the road, Lauder going defensive with Eaton right behind him. So it looks like he's just trying to break the toe. And Eaton not going with him. Delaney and Hall swap of positions for P5. And Delaney now looking to get under, looking to put Reed under a bit of pressure. Caught him a bit of a subdued start to this one. He's maintained the gap a little bit to Cotter over the last lap, but still about 2 seconds between the two of them. And Reed looking a little bit quicker than Cortum at this stage. Gap between Cotter and Munro stabilised at about 1.5 seconds now. As further down the field, looks like Thornton has got by Crabb for P14. So all happening at the moment. Lauder, a little bit of pressure behind him. And in fact, a little bit further back, we've got Brock and Birchall continuing at it. But Runch coming under a lot of pressure from Duro and Ches, and then not too far away is Thornton, Crabb, Keane and Dominiak. And Bradshaw also on the end of that, with Payne just a little bit further back. All these guys, as you can see, 106s and 7s. So Birchall having a look, and Birchall contact with Brock at turn 1, and I don't think Brock's going to be too happy with that one. It drops both of them a couple of spots. In fact, it'll probably knock Brock to the back of the field, and unfortunately it does. So turn 1 has been a very, very traumatic place for Walkinshaw and Andretti United drivers so far this evening. It knocked Hall all the way to the back of the field in race 1, and now in race 2. But Birchall knocked Brock to the back of the field here in race 2. But Brock has got a good 77 laps to make up that time. And in fact, he's made his way past Ches, who's had it off there at turn 5. Don't know how that's happened. It's back further up the field. And Lauder under attack from Eaton. And Eaton this time following his slipstream. And even though he's trying to break the toe there, I wonder if stewards may take a look at that, because he's moved more than once. But he's not dropping Eaton, and Eaton putting him under all kinds of pressure at the moment. And in the background, Runch having his best run of the season early on in this one. It's good to see the 888 Race Engineering cars up there. He's got Duro right behind him. Looks like Crabb, Thornton and Birchall also closing in on this group. And it looks like Cotter and Cordham, that gap between those guys is just going out as well. As I look at the left-hand side of the screen. With the timing tower. Gap almost 3 seconds. Cordham still under pressure from Reed. Stick with this battle though between Runch and Duro. Give him a bit of screen time once again. Lauder up ahead, just parking it in the middle of the road to break the toe. Those guys in the low 106s. And Runch and Duro just again mid to low 106s. Guys behind them just a couple of tenths faster, so they are closing slowly. But, everywhere really, from Runch all the way back to Keane, only separated by 5 seconds. So as you can see, nice little battles here in the midfield early on in this one. A little bit of luck up there for Keane. And once again, we've got 2 super cheap cars, not side by side, but line astern. Thornton running over that curb on the exit of 7. You have already seen one car go around there this evening by running over that curb. It's Thornton trying to get by Crabb. And now Cordham and Reed losing half a second on that last lap. Delaney able to match the leaders down in P5. So perhaps different strategies for our first 2. As Thornton doing the old Lauder trick, breaking the toe. And looks like we had a change of position, and it's switched back. So it's like Eaton trying to make a move at turn 1, and Lauder getting that position back on the old switcheroo. And that gap between second and third, 3.3 seconds now. So I wonder, obviously Cordham, the winner, is allowed a little bit sideways out of turn 7. It's allowed Eaton to stick with him, and behind them, so Runch and Duro also side by side. Thought Runch is going to just chop the nose of Duro a little bit too much there, and there would have been contact, but no, thankfully not. And the 2 super cheap cars side by side in the background. Birchall now ahead of Thornton as they try and close up, but not helping their cause by battling each other. Delaney, one of the faster men on the circuit, on their last lap as well, so he's closing in on Reed. He's 1.6 seconds away. Runch continuing to hold on to P9, and now also Duro, after all these guys in the 107, so not ideal for them. Runch doing a decent job on that last lap just to build a little bit of a gap, and it's Duro now that's coming under pressure. And Runch taking that wider sort of double apex line through turn 1. Hasn't helped him though. Duro's still there, but Duro's he's got to be careful, because if he does make a move and it goes slightly wrong, Crabb is right there to capitalise. And in fact, if Crabb capitalises, probably pave away the 2 super cheap cars to make a move on him as well. So he's got to play it smart. Otherwise, he'll find himself down not just one spot, but possibly three. Possibly three spots. So Cotter now, fastest lap of the race, 105.1, considerably faster than what we've seen so far. The rest of the top four also finding a bit of time, and we've got Eaton and Lauder swap position, so it looks like Lauder's made a mistake back end of the lap. Possibly the exit of the final corner there, and it's allowed Eaton to get by. Looking to just distract Eaton into turn one. Eaton not phased, holding on for P7, and now he wants to set his sights on breaking away from Lauder and trying to close in on Hall down the road, which is about 6 or so seconds further down the track. So behind them though, Runch still holding on P9. Duro just holding on to P10, but he's having to go defensive at turn number 6. There's Crab all over the back of him now. And one senses that if Duro doesn't make a move soon on Runch and make a break of it, he's going to end up getting a little bit of mincemeat for the cars behind, or end up in an incident, because these guys look like they're getting increasingly impatient by sticking behind these guys. Looks like a decent run by Crab out of the final corner, but looks like the slipstream is helping Duro just maintain P10. He's having to park it in the middle of the road. Goes defensive after Crab goes to the inside. They're both very, very late on the brakes. Duro gives Crab nowhere to really go. And he holds on for now. So stern defence in this battling, allowing Runch just to have a little bit of breathing room and hold on for P9. We'll be hoping this battle continues, and at the same kind of intensity here on lap 11. So Runch doing a good job at the moment. One of his better drives of the season so far. Able to withstand the pressure. It's just up the road there. Eaton just edging away from Lauder now. 7/10 faster on that last lap. And Runch and Duro, the second half of that last lap, they're able just to give themselves a little bit of breathing room, as Crab now under pressure from Birchall. Birchall sending it up the inside. He's sideways. He's half around, and he sends Crab off the circuit as well. So they're both going to lose out to Thornton, who says, "I'll take that. Thank you very much." That'll be the easiest two positions he makes up all evening. And now it's his chance to try and put some pressure and get by Duro and Runch in front of him, as Duro a little bit wide over the curb. The exit of turn 5, and trying to spear into the barrier on the other side there. Also got a little bit of a battle starting to form at the front of the field as well. Only half a second separating Munro and Cotter. As Duro, as you can see, it's a vastly different line between himself and Runch. Runch much wider for the entry of the final corner. He's able to carry much better, or get on the power much earlier. So perhaps Duro might want to change his thinking just a little bit for that final corner. As you can see, much better under braking at turn 1. These guys now at a considerable gap. In fact, I reckon there must have been a move that must have been attempted there. Got Birchall all the way back at the final corner there, so something's happened, and he's now entering the pit. So Birchall was with that crew and now finds himself entering the pit lane on lap 13. He's running in 12th or 13th place, and now finds himself last. I did miss that, I do apologise, but he's now in the pits. And in fact, I think, yeah, he's a lap down now as we cut to the front, and Munro under quite a bit of pressure from Cotter in behind. Now, we did see Cotter and Cordham. Cordham looked like he was just a hair faster than Cotter in race 1, but so far it's been much quicker. Munro able to get a good start and launch into the lead, has done a good job as well. So I wonder if there's a little bit of fuel strategy and pit strategy going on with that, because I did see Cortum really shouldn't be that much slower than Cotter, or at least if race 1 was any indication. But Cortum and Reed will be hoping that these two at the front continue to duke it out and cost each other time, because they've been just edging away lap by lap. There's almost 5 seconds between first and third now. In fact, Cortum's starting to head a little battle pack, as you can see in the background there, with Reed and Delaney in behind. And Munro taking a very interesting line as Cotter running wide there next to the turn, or in the mid part of turn 1 there, just out braking himself. But Munro taking, I guess you could say, the Craig Lowndes entry, just turning him very early. I think part of it might be his driving style. I think the other part of it is just a defensive mechanism to let Cotter know that I'll be turning in nice and early, and you're not going to be able to just send it up the inside very late. But despite that slight mistake from Cotter, he's able to close right up onto the back of Munro once again. And down the field, Runch and Duro still battling out very close together. In fact, Thornton's right there with him as well. As you can see, very close together. Crab not too far away as well. Oh, and actually do have a change for the lead, so I reckon Munro's we cut away from that. Must have made a mistake on the exit of the final corner to allow Cotter to get ahead. And Munro sticking it up the inside. He's going to try and make the move, and had to pull it up because Cotter was just going to pull in front of him regardless. So Cotter now into the lead, Munro down to second. They did lose about half a second to Cortum and Reed on that last lap. In fact, looks like Delaney, he's actually lost a little bit of time compared to Reed and Cortum as well. But can Cotter extend his lead? And can Munro strike back and get back into the lead? Obviously, it'll help him now that he has a little bit of a slipstream, as opposed to him punching a hole in the air for Cotter to exploit. He's kept it fairly close on this lap. As Thornton cut to it. Thornton's all kinds of sideways. He's got himself in front of Duro. Duro up the inside at turn 6. Thornton will have the inside for turn 7, but Duro much better through turn 6. And he gets that position back. That's allowed Runch to break away. In fact, they've closed up on the back of Lauder, who he's got Birchall right behind him trying to sort of unlap himself. And at the front though, Munro losing time now, starting to bleed a little bit of time to Cotter out front. Cortum still holding on to third, and looks like Delaney once again starting just to edge closer to this battle for third place. And further back at the moment, Hall, distant 6th place. And he's, I think, got Eaton sort of slowly eating into his gap that he has between those two. So I reckon we might see these converge at some point later on in the race. Eaton doing a fantastic job at the moment in the Ford Mustang. Current leading Ford Mustang in the race. Lauder, obviously being trailed by Birchall, who's down in 19th and a lap down. He's not letting him go though. And behind him, it's actually got Duro starting to sort of close in as well. Or Runch and Duro, I should say. But Duro has dropped Thornton. Thornton now under pressure from Crab in P12 in the Harvey Norman Nissan Altima. And then Dominiak also not too far away from this battle as well. Further down the field, you've got Keane, Bradshaw and Brock all duking it out. Obviously Brock did get spun around at turn 1 on lap 4. So he's trying to make his way back up through the field. Pace-wise, he should probably be just inside the top 10 as we saw in race 1. But he's got plenty of time to get his way back up there. But he is going to need a little bit of a help as he gets by Bradshaw for P15 and now sets his sights on Keane in the Team 18 car just up the road. So, once again, back to the battle for P9. Duro has closed down Runch, but Runch just hasn't made a mistake all race long and hasn't given those guys behind him a sniff of getting by him. So he's been quite good coming out of this final corner. That said though, Duro looks like he's had a decent exit this time. But once again, Runch just been really, really good out of the final corner, turn 14. That wider entry setting himself up nicely for the straight. Taking a little bit of a different line into turn 1. Duro having a look, but not close enough to stick his nose in and force Runch to stick it in the middle, or to park it in the middle of the road. And not hit the apex. So I reckon this battle goes on. I reckon we'll probably see a little bit more desperation from Duro and Thornton. This time Runch having to go defensive at turn 6, and it's a very long corner, so it is difficult to hold around the outside. We have seen drivers do that so far in this race, but this time Runch able to hold on the inside. And now you can see Duro under pressure from Thornton in behind, with Crab keeping a watchful eye. And there you can see just a vast difference. You can just see the difference in with the lines there. Much better exit for Runch, even though he did miss the apex a little bit. That early turn in compromising Duro's exit, and now Thornton, with the aid of a bit of a slipstream from the Commodore in front of him, able to just pull ahead of Duro, but Duro with the inside able to hold on. Thornton going to try and hold on around the outside, and in fact he's actually going to do it. He is going to do it. He will have the inside eventually for turn number 5. And he's got it. So fantastic move from Thornton to get himself back into the top 10. So he was in the top 10 in qualifying, but hasn't had a good start in this one. See down the field, Bradshaw and Brock swapping positions. So after all that, now Thornton's had a good run in the middle sector. And we've had Reed and Cortum swap positions as well. With the final spot on the podium, Reed going defensive early. Cortum trying to park it around the outside and go around the outside. So we have seen a move just happen around the outside. But this time, Reed able to hold on. Obviously the swap of position and battling that these guys have had has allowed Delaney to close in. Oh, and we've had a little bit of contact and a spin, and Cortum goes around. That's allowed, out of all that, that's allowed Delaney to be the big winner. So he's up a spot now into P3. And in fact, Cortum now dropping a spot to Hall as well. So disaster for Cortum. So he's not only lost 1 spot, he's now lost 3. Further down the field though, it's all happening here on lap 21. We've got Thornton and Runch side by side behind them. Duro looking to make a move as well. Might have even been a little bit of contact between Runch and Duro there. Thornton again trying to hold on around the outside at turn 6. He'll have the inside for turn 7, but doesn't have the overlap. And Runch just chopping his nose there, as he's allowed to do. But, it's all coming to a head here, I reckon. That's Thornton. So he's taken a slightly different line to what Duro has, and he's been able to stay a little bit closer to Runch. Now Runch hasn't been the greatest under braking it, as you can see, Crab in the pits. Thornton's been a bit better under braking at turn 1. In fact, Runch all over the place under braking at turn 1, just holding on for dear life. So we are 22 laps in, so tyres might, well, they're certainly going to be a little bit second hand by now. But that still is very, very early for a pit stop, unless you just want to get in clear air, tank it up, and pit on lap 50 or 60, and then try and get to the end. Again, Runch defensive into 6. Thornton going to try and go around the outside. We've seen this 3 or 4 times already. This time, Thornton with a better run, but outbrakes himself, couldn't pull it up, and up the inside. Bit of contact though, or I don't know if there was contact, but it certainly looked like there was between Duro and Runch. Unfortunately for Runch, down he goes, all his hard work undone, and in fact Ches is probably going to pick him up as well. Oh, in fact Ches making a mistake there and running wide. So Runch now from 9th place all the way down to 14th, so disaster for him. But hopefully he can sort of recover as the race goes on, because he did put in a very solid 22 laps there. And after all that, Duro now up into P9. Thornton, all his hard work just undone there, allowing Duro to go by. So he's sort of remained there in P10. Dominiak, he was well behind those guys, but started chipping away and closed in as the battling got more and more intense. And Keane not too far away either. So we might see these guys sort of converge as well as the race goes on. Up at the front, we've got Munro's dropped 3+ seconds behind Cotter now. So Cotter, comfortable lead over P2. So, a mistake from Munro, and he's got, I think that's Crab there a lap down. That just let him go to lap. Indeed it is. That certainly won't help his cause at all. And in third place, got Delaney, who's coming under pressure from Reed. So Reed did get himself up into third place. But incident here a couple laps ago here at turn 5 between himself and Cortum. So he dropped those guys behind Delaney. He was able to capitalise. But now Reed trying to get himself back into the top 3. Pardon me. And obviously maximise his championship points. So caught at 1:05.6, and we've actually got Munro into the pit lane. So he's looking to pit on lap 25. Just trying to whack some new boots on that thing and go a little bit faster. Now, it will be interesting to see what the strategy situation will be. I wonder how far people can go out there. If people will try and one stop, or if it's a 2 or 3 stop race. I think the earliest proper pit stop we saw was on lap 13. I don't know how that's going to work out. As Munro comes out, he's going to drop out behind his teammate Lauder, who's up in P7, but in front of Duro, who has now got Thornton starting to close up onto the back of him once again. So resuming their battle from just a few laps ago. So I'll just stick with this battle for now for P2. Not much between these guys. And a vital championship battle obviously taking place between these guys. Obviously Cortum having that off, an incident with Reed dropping him down to 5th. Certainly going to affect the team's championship and the drivers' championship as well. So Cortum second place in the drivers' championship, I believe. I'm trying to obviously catch up to Reed, our championship leader. Did what he had to do in race 1, taking the win and finishing in front of Reed, but obviously he's going to be losing out points here, but he's only a couple places down on him, but he's good 8 seconds down that he's going to have to make up either in the pit stops or on the racetrack. And he's also got to get past Hall in P4. Delaney doing a good job at the moment. Road and Thornton close together on the racetrack, duking it out. They are closing in on Lauder in front, and mistake from Duro, out breaks himself at turn 5. They're going to be side by side, Miro and Thornton at turn 6. Thornton's tried going around the outside multiple times already this evening there at turn 6, but to no avail. And it actually did sort of cost him trying to make that move into turn 7 just a couple laps ago. Also, unfortunately, saw Runch getting spun around as well there into turn 7. Got Eaton now in the pits, leading the lead Ford Mustang. And looks like 2 Nissans sort of duking it out. I wonder if there was any team orders involved there, as Munro just moving ahead of Lauder. Obviously, Lauder has yet to pit, while Munro he pitted on lap 25, and we do have a change between Thornton and Duro, so Thornton will finally think he's in his rightful position, but the problem for him now is he's going to close in on Lauder and probably give Duro another opportunity to take advantage of Thornton being a little bit distracted as allowed a little bit of a mistake there. Half sort of spin at turn 6, and that's going to close that battle up once again. Then in the back there, Dominiak having his best run of the season, or one of his best runs of the season there in the, obviously right at the end there in the top 10, in 10th. But it's only 1.5 seconds in front of Keane in P11. So Thornton, his best lap of the race. So obviously the fuel starting to run out or empty in his car. It's Lauder a little bit sideways at turn 1. That has allowed Thornton, I should say, to close right up. In fact, Thornton, one of the quicker drivers on the circuit at the moment, so he'll be kicking himself that he dropped a little bit down the field at the start of the race and got involved in battles that he didn't want to be in. But with that kind of pace, could see him move up a spot. I'm not sure. Obviously, with a lot of time left, he's going to need a safety car to sort of bring him in contention for a top 5 or 6. Because he's going to need to find about 20 seconds, realistically, with Cortum up the road. That's some quite good pace at the moment, but he's got to get himself in clear air to make it work. It's Lauder, not an ideal exit out of the final corner. In fact, going into the pit. So that is exactly what Thornton wanted. And Thornton on that lap obviously stuck behind Lauder, 106.3, still 10th faster than Duro. Also got Dominiak and Bradshaw into the pit lane as well. So Runch continues on at the front though. Delaney now 10.5 seconds behind Cotter. Obviously, none of these guys have pitted. Munro, the first of the leaders that has pitted, is Cotter over the line at 105.7. We'll just stick with Munro for a moment and we'll see what lap time he's able to do when he crosses start-finish line, as Thornton he finally gets himself in clear air, and he's made a mistake at looks like turn 5 and then turn 6, and that has allowed Duro to get by him once again. So would be frustrating for the super cheap auto driver, but he brought it upon himself by the look of it, and once again having to put in the work to get himself ahead of the Bottle car. As Munro, a couple tenths faster on that last lap than Cotter. He's going to need to do that right up until Cotter pits. But the question is, when will Cotter pit? And can Cotter make it another 11 laps and 1 stop, as opposed to obviously Munro pitting on lap 25, and he'll definitely have to pit again, I'd assume. So, can drivers make it to 41, or will they have to 2-stop? And well, once again, Thornton now has got ahead of Duro after all that. A lap later, these guys about 5-6 seconds ahead of Keane in P9. A lot of drivers have pitted now, and that's why they are a lap down. Ches and Bradshaw swapping positions there down the field. Munro 105.7. Actually lost a little bit, a couple tenths there on that last lap to Cotter in P1. That was 36.1, it's now 36.4. He needs to get that gap probably to about 34-35 seconds. He wants to give himself any kind of hope to emerge in front of Cotter when he pits. And there it is, another 105.6 for Cotter. So he's looking quite comfortable in the lead. And going by strategy and by pace, I don't think he can be beaten barring mistake or some kind of mechanical or computer problem. There's Munro running wide there at turn 10 and 11. That's going to cost him quite a bit of time. So that has been an issue for Munro. He's got pace, but it's just that consistency where he just can't put it all together for a long period of time, and certainly won't be a great lap. Still a 106.0, but without running wide like that, he probably would have been in a mid 5, and that gap going out once again. So 36.9, it was 36.4 on the last lap, and before that it was 36.1 between himself and Cotter, who effectively they're battling for the race lead, but Munro's pitted and Cotter has yet to pit. So the battle for second has heated up. Reed has got a good exit out of the final corner. Delaney is going to have to go defensive. Sort of drifts towards the middle, but ends up going back to the racing line. Reed sticks it up the inside. Delaney sort of cuts in front of Reed, and Reed is in. I think he's clipped the barrier there on the inside. If he didn't, he somehow avoided it and spun around, and that's allowed obviously Delaney to get away, and it's also going to allow Hall to close right up to the back. Well, not quite right up to the back of Reed, but costing a lot of time. So Delaney just chopping the front of Reed there. Very, very late manoeuvre, but he could, I guess, argue that he was trying to hit the apex. But I don't think Reed would be too happy with that one, that's for sure, because he did have to sort of move out of the way and get on the brakes at the same time, which would have unsettled the car. And obviously with those tyre bundles on the inside being solid, you don't want to hit them either and have a massive accident and damage your car. So frustrating for Reed, but still plenty of time to close up to the back of Delaney. We're not even at half distance yet. It's got Keane in the pits. He's going to emerge probably just after the string of cars going down the pit straight there. So Hall there in 4th place. He's trying to get by. I'm trying to think who that. It's either. No, it's not Runch. So that's Dominiak that he's trying to get by. Dominiak in P13. Now he can set his sights on Reed just up the road. Now I do wonder though, did Reed, because he didn't quite see it on the camera angle, if Reed did clip the barrier, but I wonder if he did. The next couple of laps will be a giveaway. If Hall starts to close that gap down and put him under pressure, I'd have to assume that he did. And that may even things out, I guess, championship-wise, if Cortum can pick his pace up and get ahead of him, and for 2 races in a row, or for both races this evening, at least close that gap between himself and Reed in the championship. But the gap between Hall and Reed at the moment, about 1.5 seconds. So Munro down the field there, P6. The gap sort of stabilised between himself and Cotter to 36.5 seconds. Now, in 6 laps, if drivers can make it to 41, they can make it to the end of the race on 1 stop. And a lot of drivers, obviously we have seen Munro, he pitted on lap 25. I'm not exactly sure what the fuel situation is, if you can get home on 25. No, we've got Cotter in the pits. Cotter in the pits. So I wonder, can he make it to the end from there, or will he have to stop again on lap 70? And we've also got Delaney in the pits as well, looking to chuck on some fresh tyres. So that means Reed now into the lead. Hall, a couple tenths faster. Same with Corson, both 3 tenths faster than Reed, who is now in the race lead. Now I wonder if any of these guys, obviously Corson was a lot quicker in race 1, and particularly Cotter. So Cotter sort of broke away, as did Munro. And Corson was the fastest driver, or at least very, very close to being the fastest driver. There wasn't much between himself and Cotter in that first race pace-wise. I reckon, or I think, actually no, scrap that, perhaps pace difference in this race, because Cortum hasn't had the pace in this second race here. Perhaps he's been fuel saving here to try and get himself to that magical 41 to try and only one stop. And if he has, well, that's going to save him a lot of time, and probably enough time for him to finish in front of Cotter and certainly Munro. But he hasn't. No, he's into the pit lane, so he can't make 41. And he's going to be 5 laps short. And Reed also into the pit lane. So there we go. He wasn't saving fuel, just hasn't had the pace when he's chucked more fuel in the car. The balance not quite there. As Munro now up into P2. In fact, that's quite important. Munro's put quite a lot of time between himself and Cotter. So that is for the effective race lead. So Cotter with a longer pit stop compared to Munro. And Hall into the lead. So will Hall pit on this lap? But I think what's happened here, obviously Munro putting... perhaps he's just put 25 laps or 28 or 9 laps of fuel in the car, as well as pitting on lap 25. See, it would have been a shorter pit stop than what Cotter's would have been. He was able to sort of match Cotter around the circuit and would have made up a little bit of time here and there. But the shorter pit stop time has meant that he's ended up in the lead, while Cotter has just tanked it with 35, 36 laps of fuel. And that extra fuel time has meant that he has jumped ahead of Cotter for the effective race lead. Got Hall into the pit lane. So he's going to have to pit on at least lap 70, or the latest he can go is probably lap 74, maybe 75. Actually, no, perhaps even 76, but he will have to stop again when this race is out. Also got Thornton and Duro now entering the pit lane, but Munro has pulled a little bit of a strategy masterstroke, put his laps together and finds himself into the lead despite Cotter getting by him before the pit stop sequence. So different bit of strategy, pitting a bit early on lap 25 compared to lap 35-36 for Cotter, and that shorter fuel has enabled him to jump into the lead. Or perhaps Cotter made a little bit of an error somewhere, but I don't think he did, because he didn't lose time to Delaney and Hall. Oh, sorry, between Delaney and Reed in behind. So very, very interesting as we approach half distance here. It's a problem for Munro at the moment. He's got Bradshaw and Runch battling in front of him. Looks like Bradshaw getting... well, I don't know if actually... is Bradshaw getting out of the way, or if he's looking up the inside? No, he looks like he's lifting off down the pit straight. And if Bradshaw plays it smart and sticks with Munro, he might be able to just steal a position here as Runch gets out of the way. It's a bit of a darker, a bit dirty as Munro wide in the exit of turn 1, just pushing too hard. He didn't have to do that, but that's going to certainly allow Cotter to close that gap up. It was 5.2 seconds. That's going to be under 2.5. No, it's going to be under 2 seconds. In fact, it might even be a second by the time they reach turn number 6. So all that gap that Munro had, all gone because he, well, just pushing too hard when he didn't have to. And also looking around strategy-wise, Eaton was another one that pitted very early on. I think he was one of the first to pit, actually. And out of all that, he's right behind Cortum and Hall now. And putting Cortum under a lot of pressure. So Eaton, he's having a very, very good run at the moment. And making it very, very difficult for Cortum to get away, as Cortum loses the back end on the exit curb there at turn 6, and giving Eaton further encouragement to try and make a move and try and get after Hall and Reed just down the road. So Eaton right there with him. So as you can see, if you can look at his steering wheel, 7 tenths off his personal best, so not ideal on that lap. 106.7, both 106.7s for Eaton and Cortum. But Eaton has sort of clawed his way back into it. It seems like the shorter pit stops have brought them into play, but one thing to look out for though is that final pit stop will be a lot shorter for guys like Cotter and, well, for all the guys that stayed out a bit longer. Their final pit stop will be shorter because obviously they can go a lot longer and they won't need to put as much fuel in the car. But if you needed to make up a bit of time, pitting early certainly brings him to play, but now they've got to have a really, really strong middle stint if they want to have any opportunity to make up positions as Eaton and Cordham come up to the back of, I think that's Crab. And we've had Birchall just retire out of the race. I don't know what's happened. Hopefully he can get back in the server and finish, but that's him done and dusted. The first DNF of the race is Brock and Lauder duking it out. Brock finally now into, well, he's into the top 10 and getting past Lauder at 4P9 after all the pit stops have shaken out. And he's 12 seconds behind Crab in P8. And he finds himself in front of Duro and Dominiak. In fact, looks like there's a nice little battle forming between Dominiak, who's just ahead of Ches and Thornton, who are duking it out. Thornton down in 14th now. He's at a yo-yo, up-down roller coaster here in the feature race. And up at the front as well. Up at the front, absolutely nothing between Cotter and Munro. 106.3 for Munro, 105.4 for Cotter. So not an ideal time or lap for Munro on that last one. And with the pit stop situation shaking out, he's going to find himself in a little bit of trouble, is Munro. He will have better tyres for a little while when he pits, probably around lap 50. Depending on how much he fueled, he may have put a little bit more fuel in, so he will have a little bit of a period there where he'll be on better tyres. But that mistake he made earlier, where he had a 5-second gap, see now nothing, and I reckon that's going to come back to haunt him because Cotter will have a shorter final pit stop, and if he doesn't make a mistake, I can't see Munro finding that time, because he's going to need, well, more than the 5 seconds he had. He's probably going to need a 7 or 8 second gap to make that time back up. And as well, at the end, Cotter will have better tyres as they get side by side. Cotter wants to get the job done now, get back into the lead and control the race. There's the Team 18 and Red Bull car battling it off in the background. Munro defensive. Cotter going to try and go around the outside of turn 1. He's held it very, very well. But, Cotter getting forced off there. Munro giving a little bit of a hip and shoulder, a bit of encouragement to do some lawn mowing, and for now, Munro holds on. I don't think Cotter will be too pleased with that one, but if Cotter can just stick with Munro, by the time the pit stops shake out, I think by the end of it, if he doesn't make a mistake, he'll end up a good 6 or 7 seconds ahead out of the pit stop sequence, because he'll have a shorter final pit stop because he won't have to put as much fuel in the car than what Munro will when he pits, probably, around that 50, 55, maybe even 60, depending on how much he fueled it. Further down the field, Cordham still under a bit of pressure from Eaton in behind. Eaton having a very good run, but Eaton's another one of those drivers that pitted very, very early compared to Cordham, Hall and Reed just in front of him. So when these pit stops shake out, or the next sequence of pit stops shake out, he will end up losing quite a bit of time because he'll have to be stationary for quite a bit longer. Well, these guys in particular, they'll only have to put about a dozen or so laps of fuel in their cars. Some of them even less. Obviously, Reed, I believe, went the longest. He only needs to put about 8 laps of fuel or something in his car. Maybe even less. Might even be 6 or 7 laps of fuel in his car. So he'll make up a bit of time. So Reed's goal will probably be to get that gap between himself and Delaney to probably within about 4 or 5 seconds, and then come pit stop time, he should be able to get him in the pit stops. On that last lap, obviously Cotter in a little bit of clear air, able to pick up a couple tenths on Munro for the lead. Brock and Lauder continuing to duke it out for P9. Also got Dominiak And Thornton duking it out. Ches not too far away from them either. So Thornton's probably got a little bit of PTSD looking at the back of these Red Bull Holden racing cars. So you're stuck looking at the back of Runches for a little while. And now he's stuck looking at the back of Dominiak's. But the mistakes that he's made, he'll be kicking himself, because he could be with that Cortum-Eaton battle, but mistakes have dropped him down the field. Cost him, as you can see, about 20 seconds or so, all up. That said though, he's only 6 seconds away from Brock in P9, so top 10 is certainly viable. He's just got to drive the second half of the race nice and clean, and you'll pick up some nice points for super cheap. A little bit of slide though on the exit of turn number 5, not going to help his causes at all. If he had a good run, he was close enough to possibly make a late dive, but he didn't have the good run. But Dominiak wide on the exit of turn 6 over the ripple strip. But the next corner at turn 7, you're not really able to make a move unless you're right there. With all that going down, that has allowed Ches to close right up on the back of these guys. And now it's all going to be about who gets the best exit. And Thornton looks like he's got an okay exit, but I reckon Dominiak's is just slightly better. Was just edging away. He will have a slipstream, but it looks like it's not coming until very, very late on in the straight. Thornton just showing his nose. Is he making a move or just looking for his breaking point? No, he's looking to make a move. Has to turn in a little bit late, and I think there's a little bit of contact between himself and Dominiak. A little bit of hip and shoulder, and that's unfortunately, so he moved Dominiak now down to 14th, as Ches was able to get through as well. And now once again Thornton is well, he's going to want to close in onto the back of his rival for this race, Duro. I've had a number of run-ins and battles throughout this one. He's got Reed there in P4, setting his personal best on that last lap. The gap between first and second, it was almost 3 seconds just a couple laps ago. It's now a second, so Munro continuing to make slight mistakes. Cotter continuing to be a bit of a metronome out there, and bringing that gap down at the front. We've still got Lauda and Duro very, very close together and swapping positions. So a mistake from Lauda. He's now out of the top 10. He was running 7th and 8th, even 9th for a little while, but now his consistency and slight mistakes starting to cost him. Thornton a 58.7 on that last lap, so he's quite quick out there. He has been quite quick since, well, he was quite quick in qualifying for the feature race, but the race hasn't gone his way as Thornton, but he's still got time to make up for it and end up in the top 10. See Lauda coming off a win in the GT3 series last week, but unable to challenge for the lead in this one this evening. In fact, we've got a change for the lead, so it looks like Munro's made a mistake at turn 5 and turn 6, and that's allowed Cotter now into the lead. And I reckon barring mistake or catastrophic problem for Cotter, he has the pace and he's certainly got fuel on his side to take a comfortable lead over Munro, who is probably approaching his pit stop time. That's it, though, as you saw that long shot there, they are going to come up to some traffic. It looks like it's the Brock, Duro, Lauda, Thornton, Ches and Dominiak battle. Cotter now in the lead and driving away from Munro, who looks like he's struggling out there. Doesn't quite have the tyre life pace that we saw from Cotter and Delaney. Although that said, Delaney on that last lap, a 108 compared to a Reed, a 105.9. So Reed trying to cut that gap down. Obviously, there's a bit of contact between, I think it was Reed and Delaney that dropped Reed down the field. Yeah, Delaney just chopped in front of Reed there at turn 1. And Reed went around trying to avoid both Delaney and the tyre bundles on the inside. But if Reed just closes that gap down, he'll buy himself a little bit of a ticket. He might be able to buy himself a ticket to get in front of Delaney Yes, I do believe Reed was the last man to stop, and we'll have a little bit of time advantage in the pit stop, but he's got to close that gap down. 6 seconds is too much. He's got to get it down to at least within 4 seconds to really make it work. And we've got Munro in the pits, pit on 25, it's pitted on 50, and well, he's going to try and go 32 laps to the end, but in the first stint he struggled right at the end, you know, going 25 laps, and again in his second stint he struggled to get to 25 laps. He's going to have to go an extra 7 this time out. I don't know how he's going to go, because he seemed to struggle on these worn tyres. So one long stint coming up for Munro. We may see more positions change from second down to 4th and 5th. He's emerged though just behind Eaton. Eaton, another one of the drivers that did pit fairly early, I believe. He's dropped off the back of Courtsham in recent laps. Was putting Courtsham under a bit of pressure, and maybe even had to try to make a move or two, but didn't get the job done, and now Courtsham's just stretched away. And he's trying to close in on Hall in front of him. Obviously a race 1 winner, struggling so far here in race 2. Just hasn't been able to match the pace of Cotter and Reed, and even his teammate, since he had that little adventure which dropped him down the field as well. So perhaps he may be carrying a little bit of damage, or perhaps his car just struggles with that extra bit of fuel. But either way, just a little bit anonymous in this one for Courtsham. Still, P5 is quite handy, but he really needs to be finishing in front of Reed if he wants to give himself the best opportunity in the Drivers' Championship. Further down the field, had Duro get past Brock, so they've finally caught up to the back of Brock. They've got by him. Duro's got by Lauder as well, and Thornton not too far away from Duro, who he was chasing down as well, just a couple laps to go. But now he's got to deal with Lauder, and obviously the wider ZB. No, he's not going to have to deal with a wider ZB Commodore going around, because Brock into the pit lane. Brock was another one of those guys that did pit early. So he is in, and thankfully for Thornton and for Lauder, they don't have to try and get by him to get chasing back after Duro again. So that pit stop will put Brock a lap down. Delaney now putting a lap on Dominiak, I believe. But just looking at the gap between Delaney and Reed, looks like that gap has come down to under 6 seconds now, about 5.7, 5.8 seconds. So it's coming down just a little bit, but yeah, Reed really does need to get that to within 4 seconds to give himself every opportunity. Hall, he's having a little bit of a quiet run, although he's had times where Courtsham is sort of closed relatively close by. But for the most part, he hasn't been quite close to Reed or Delaney since really the opening stanza of the race. And Courtsham really, he hasn't put him under any pressure. He's come to, I think, within 1.5 seconds at one point, but that's as close as he's gotten. So Hall doing a good job for Walkinshaw and Andretti United. So they did drop behind Rabble Club, and with the way this race is panning out, you never know. You may see that change as we've got Lauder now into the pits. So the battle between Brock and Lauder is actually quite important with regards to the championship, or the team championship there. It's got who was that entering the pits? One of the lap cars. That was Brock entering the pits. So Brock serving, must be a drive-through penalty. Yeah, Brock's serving a drive-through for either speeding in the pit lane or perhaps track cuts or something like that. So that will certainly not help his cause, because he's now a good sector behind Lauder. Just as I was talking up a battle between them. So that puts that to bed. It's at the moment closest battle on track between Thornton and Ches. Couple seconds between the two, and then another, actually Duro just up the road from Thornton as well, which is actually the closest battle on track. apologise for that silence, just had to take a short break, but just having a look at the moment, looks like the gap between Delaney and Reed has actually come down to about 5 seconds now, so Reed still continuing to close. Duro now starting to look a little bit more and more in his mirrors, as Thornton once again closes him down, resuming their race-long battle. We've got Eaton and Munro very, very close together. Eaton now entering the pits. Munro having served his, I believe it will be his final pit stop on lap 50, but he'll have to put in a very, very long stint to get home. And we saw how he was struggling towards the end of his tyre life, and that was only after 25 laps. We have seen 36 laps, 37 laps I believe actually was the longest stint we've seen, which I think Munro will have to end up doing about 30 plus laps on his tyre, so I don't know how he's going to manage that with the way he was going 20 laps into his stints, but he's going to give it a crack. It may be very, very interesting. You may see him sort of struggle and fall off, and Delaney and Reed perhaps close him down towards the end of the race. Delaney setting one of his better laps in a while, first 105 in a while, actually putting a little bit of time on Reed in the background there. But that lock up there at turn 1 not going to help his cause though. That said, I don't think he lost too much time though. You are able to sort of take the turn 1 with a sort of double apex or really, really late turn in there. It's about 20 seconds behind Cotter. His top 5 all yet to pit for the final time. Will be a 2-stop race. Got Crab now into the pit lane. It's our race leader 105.4. About to close in on Thornton and Duro to put a lap on them. So it might be a little bit awkward for a little while for Cotter to get by these guys. So just looking through the field, got Ches sort of, he's not too far away as well from that little battle pack. About 3 or 4 seconds away, but he's currently listed as a lap down. Dominiak is probably a further 5 or 6 seconds away, and then Eaton right behind him as well. Eaton has stopped for his final. Obviously, he doesn't have to stop again compared to Dominiak, Ches, and Thornton. Same with Duro. So Munro and Eaton are the first ones of sort of the top 10, 11 guys to have pitted. But probably see, once all the stops shake out, we will probably see Munro emerge in P2, but his tyre is going to be quite worse, or quite, well worn I should say, compared to Delaney and Reed in behind. And those guys have been slowly chipping away at Munro's pace all race long, after that opening stand where obviously he got away and built a lead over those guys. But at the end of each stint, though, he has really, really struggled, and he's given himself every opportunity to finish in P2, but there's still question marks over to whether he can hold on, though, with the way he's been driving on all tyres. And actually, the gap between Delaney and Reed's actually jumped out to about 6 seconds, so it looks like Reed's made a mistake somewhere. A little bit of traffic, perhaps. See one of the Red Bull Holden racing cars in the background, and now he's looking like he's trying to come up to the back of Crab there in P12. We've got Eaton and Dominiak's hopping position. Dominiak entering the pit lane. Ches also entering the pit lane. So Eaton now back up into the top 10. And he's just waiting on Thornton and Duro to pit so he can move back up into P7. So Cotter has got by super cheap car of Thornton, and now he's got by Duro. Thornton not close enough to be able to capitalise on Cotter making his way through. But he's as close as he's been That is for sure. So now he's just got to try and set up a decent run out of the final corner. Again, turns in a little bit too early. Had to actually get out of it in the steering wheel, straighten the steering wheel up. Otherwise, he would have hit the tyre bundles on the inside, and that's given Duro a free kick. Duro just putting his car in the middle of the way, in the middle of the road, I should say, just to try and break the toe. Thornton not following him in the slipstream, and giving Duro just that little bit more of an advantage as well. So they come into turn 1, but Thornton looks like he's making up just a little bit of time under braking, but again, sort of getting out of the steering just a little bit through turn 1, and sort of compromise his exit a little bit, and allowing Duro just to stick in front of him. So it's these micro, I wouldn't say mistakes per se, but these little lines and little subtleties that if he just cleaned up, he'd certainly give himself a much better opportunity to get by Duro here. So you're right on board Thornton in P8, the super cheap Tickford Mustang, and again just a little bit wide there, turn 10-11. Again, an earlier turn in for the final corner means he can't quite get on the power as early as he'd like, and it forces him wide on the exit. And again, Duro just edging away down the pit straight and moving to the inside. There's a car leaving the pits. It's one of the Harvey Norman cars. Maybe Payne there. Yes, it is Payne, and Payne off in the grass there at turn 1. So we'll stick with this battle for P7. And the middle sector seems to be where Thornton is quicker. There's big slide under braking at turn 6 for Thornton. And again on the exit, so his rear tyre is not in the best of nick. And obviously pushing hard to try and find a way past Duro in the Bodlow car. That's just overdriving it just a little bit. Turns in a little bit early this time for 10 and 11. Gives himself a better opportunity. Now, does he stay a little bit wider? He does stay a little bit wider for the final corner. Duro a little bit wider. Misses the apex in front of him. And in fact, looks like Duro entering the pit lane. No, he's not. He's kept it going. Thornton to the inside. And Thornton should get the job done as a car in front of him leaves the pits. Looks like it's one of the Red Bull cars. Indeed it is. And they're going to go 3 wide into turn 1. Thornton pulls it up. And Thornton now into P7. Duro down to P8 as they go through and lap. And that's Runch. That's they went through and lap there. Also got our second place man into the pits. So Delaney in the pits with 20 laps to go. Now, what lap times can he put out? Now, the man he's racing, Reed, there was, I think, 6 seconds when they pitted, separating the two. And Reed, he probably doesn't, I don't think he has to pit for another 10 or so laps. If he tanked it up, he got to lap 30, I think 37, 38. It was the end of lap 37 when he pinned it, I believe. So he could probably get to lap 76, and he'd only need a splash and dash to get to the end. Well, obviously Delaney is going to have to put a little bit more fuel in it to get to the end. So that whole pit stop sequence, looking at the times, so there's only about 19 or so seconds between Reed and Delaney. And there was 6 seconds before that, so about 25 seconds for a pit stop, at least for the fuel that Delaney put in. Well, Reed, he's going to have a little bit of a dilemma too. Like, will he risk keeping an old set of tyres on and just putting 6 laps of fuel in if he tanked it up, or will he put a fresh set of boots on and 6 laps of fuel? So it will cost him time putting tyres on with that little amount of fuel, that is for sure. And that car behind Delaney there, that's Munro. And we've got a car off in the back. It looks like, I think that's Keane there. So that is 4th position. So Delaney has got Munro 4 position. Obviously Munro had to put a full tank of fuel in, and that is big. That is key. Munro's already lost 1 position now. He may have made a mistake somewhere that we didn't see, but certainly Delaney's pit stop was very, very short, where Munro's was in excess of 30 seconds. So the gap between himself and Cotto is about 35, 36 seconds. prior to when Cotter pitted the first time, and he ended up with a 5-second lead, did Munro. So it was about 41 seconds for a full stop. While Delaney's, well, his was only 26 or so seconds total time for the last pit stop he just had a couple laps ago. So Delaney's going to be on better tyres, and obviously now they're going to be on the same amount of fuel. We've got Hall in the pits. Now where will Hall end up? Obviously probably not going to affect his track position too much in the grand scheme of things. That said though, Thornton was fairly close to him. There's Thornton coming out of the final corner. But Hall will hold on to P6 for now. Cotter still mid 105s there, 105.5. Penrite Erebus 1-2 at the moment. The question is, how fast can Delaney go? 20 seconds or 19 seconds separating himself and Reed. Reed yet to pit. So Reed's going to have to find, again, he's going to have to find a little bit of time here. But Delaney on fresh tyres should be a little bit quicker. And in fact, Delaney, his personal best of the race, 105.5. It's going to make it very, very difficult for Reed. Reed's going to probably have to take a punt in keeping old tyres on and just a splash and dash with a couple laps to go, about 6 laps to go or so. And I hope that that's enough to get him track position. If he doesn't get the track position, it doesn't really matter all that much, but his best bet to stick himself on the podium is to splash and dash without changing tyres at this stage, because he wasn't able to close the gap between himself and Reed in that last stint. Obviously he was in front of him early on in the race, but a little incident between the two at turn 1 sent Reed around and dropping him behind Delaney. In fact, Delaney now, he's actually closing in on Cotter. 47.5 seconds. So it's about half a second on that last lap faster than the race leader. Now, race leader doesn't really have to push. He's got a sizable lead over, well, Delaney is effectively in second place on the road once all the pit stops shake out, where it will probably be most likely Munro in behind and then Reed right behind him. You saw Hall there, in fact, setting his personal best on the last lap as well. So he's also on a fresh set of boots, just pitting a few laps to go. Eaton setting his personal best. So he's got Duro probably about 9 or 10 seconds up the road. So it is catchable, but he's going to need a bit of luck. Duro behind Thornton. Thornton hasn't been able to really break away from Duro. They've been inseparable all race long. And in fact, we've got Reed in the pits now, so he's pitting early. Now, does he put fresh tyres on, or is he just chucking fuel in and just hoping he gets track position? So, no, he's not going to get that position. He's only just got going. Delaney comfortably now up into an effective P2. His teammate's just up the road. He's going to have to pit soon. But his teammate caught him. He pitted on lap 36, while Reed, he pitted on lap, I think it was 37. Now, Munro looked like he had, no, it wasn't Munro, it was his teammate. So that was Lauder that had a little bit of an off in front of Reed. It was just going through turn 1. And out of all that, looks like Reed's lost about 2 seconds out of that whole pit stop sequence. So good strategy from Delaney has seen him move up now into P3, ahead of Munro and Reed for track position, and Cortum, his teammate, yet to pit. Cortum will probably emerge about 3 or 4 seconds probably behind Hall after Cortum being spun around early on in the race. He just hasn't quite had the pace in the feature race to make it work, while he took the win in the sprint race earlier on this evening. But so Cotter will take a comfortable victory. Still yet to make the final pit stop. But after it all shakes out, he'll probably still emerge with about a 22 or 23 second lead over Delaney in second place. Cortum still yet to pit for a second time. The longest he can probably go is probably in lap 73, 74. But if Team Castrol Plus Fitness are smart, they'll either box him very soon as Delaney's pitting, and they do box him very, very soon. They box him immediately, so he doesn't hold up his teammate in Delaney, who sets a 105.7 despite trying to ride off his car there at the final corner. And he put 2 tenths over Munro, but Reid there, personal best 105.2 for him. But I think that might be a little bit too late, because the gap between himself and Delaney, who they've sort of been dueling the second half of this race, that's a little bit too much to overcome, barring a mistake from Delaney. And we've got Keane out as well. That's recently happened that we've just missed. He's got Payne in the pits. But yeah, Cotter will probably emerge. Actually, it might be 19 seconds. 19 or so. 19, 20 seconds between himself and Delaney there. But still will be a comfortable victory, barring mistake for Matt Cotter. Driven supremely well. Got past Munro. Munro running an alternate strategy with a little bit less fuel. And Munro, he had an opportunity to get a good result, but his inconsistency is, still getting in a good position for a good result. We see Reid with the fastest lap. But Munro's strategy hasn't really paid off with the mistakes that he's been making. He and Cotter were up there. They broke away from Delaney and Reid, and even Cortum as well when he prior he got spun around. In fact, caught him on that last lap at 112. He did pit. But he's got Thornton right behind him, and that is for track position. But he's lost quite a bit of time. So he's going to have to get his tyres up to temperature and up to pressure. That's Thornton right behind him. He wants to get by him and nick a top 6 here. It's like Hall's going to be a comfortable P5 in the end. Caution was only about 1.5 to 2 seconds behind him for a majority of the middle part of the race. But see, this recent strategy and perhaps a mistake or two from Cortum has dropped him out of contention for a top 5. And we've got a race leader now into the pits. Oh, and we've got... who's that around? Oh, that's... Brock's gone around and he's just gone straight onto the racing line in front of Runch. So Runch is not going to be too pleased with that. And then Runch has just reversed straight back into the wall. And that's allowed... Is that Eaton to get by, thankfully, safely. And straight into the pits goes Brock. Well, no, not quite into the pits, into the wall. So disaster for Walkinshaw and Andretti United. Both those drivers have had pace. One of them's in the top 5. It looks like Brock, his engine's not going. He might be out of this race. It would be a big, big shame. As Delaney sets his personal best at 105.4. 105.9 and Reid at 105.5. So I think the next battle on track will be Munro and Reid. Bit of a disaster there. See Brock making that mistake at the final corner, and then unfortunately taking out the 888 race engineering cars as well. Got Thornton actually into the pits. Brock has made it into the pits, and Duro into the pits. So those guys having to pit again. That's going to elevate Eaton up there. And got Bradshaw into the pit lane. So Eaton now up into P7. One of his better drives of the season. And Thornton now exiting the pit lane. And that's Crab in the background. And he's going to get Duro here. He's going to get him with the momentum. And he's on warmer tyres as well. So Crab now into the top 10 and into 9th place. And Duro now a lot of time separating himself and Thornton now. And the car as well. So Thornton finally able to not have to worry about a Bodlow car either in front of him or right behind him. In fact, Thornton is within Eaton is within catching distance, but he's going to need to set some flying laps. He's going to need also a little bit of luck as well. But Eaton did pit quite a number of laps ago. The gap between Cotter and Delaney is 18.9 seconds. So obviously Cotter just pitting on that last lap there. He just needs to take it easy. He's on the best tyres, or among the best tyres in the field. Brock's still in the pit lane, and a 105.159 for Cotter. So low fuel, fresh rubber, and absolutely flying out there. And should take a comfortable victory with 8 laps to go. But I don't want to put the commentator's curse on him, but he's driven superbly. And it's been untouchable, even though he has had Munro around him for the early part of the race. Is that Reed now fastest lap of the race? So Penrite Erebus drivers just trading fastest laps as Reed trying to close down Munro to get into the top 3. And Hall there in P5. He'll be hoping that see Munro and Reed just duke it out and give him a very slim opportunity of closing that gap down. And Cortum's lost a lot of time in the final pit stop sequence because he was only a couple seconds behind Hall. So now finds himself a good 13 seconds behind him. But this is probably the most significant battle on track at the moment. Munro and Reed. And Reed will take some kind of solace in that Munro's sort of been a bit up and down all race long. Staunton sets his personal best at 105.2. On some fresh rubber. He'll push hard to try and catch the back of Eaton. Also Munro now coming up to lap traffic. That's Bradshaw and I do believe Runch a little bit further up the road. And a 106.0 compared to 105.5. So that gap ever closing between 3rd and 4th with 7 laps to go. Let's ride on board. The Rabble Club Niston Cortum setting his personal best very, very late on in the race. Too little too late though. This is just under 12 seconds behind Hall. Or was Munro a little bit of a mistake there at turn number 6. And that's allowed Reed right behind him as Cotter. First man into the 4s in race trim. Didn't even see a 4 in the sprint race as Reed is a little bit caught out from Munro in front of him. So Reed significantly faster in the middle sector on much fresher rubber, while Munro has struggled all race long when it comes to racing on much worn rubber. It's on defensive into turn 1. I reckon Reed might even be able to hold on around the outside with the way he's been going. He's going to try it. Not quite close enough though this time around. We'll try and get him on the switchback. Munro will have to go defensive into turn 5. We'll just have to park it in the middle of the road, which he does. And now Reed will try and get him on the switchback. Munro's out, broke himself, and he's out. Well, he's off in the boonies. Getting a bit of airtime there, and he's actually going to cut off the inside of the circuit like that. I wonder if he'll end up picking up a massive track cut for that, and he's actually going to cut the track and just park it right in front of Reed. So Reed's probably not too pleased with that, because 7 seconds between himself and Delaney is thinking maybe an outside chance with a bit of luck and traffic to closing that gap down, but having to get on the anchors. But in the end then, Reed up into P3 and making it a Penrite Erebus 1-3. Delaney flying the flag for the Team Castrol Plus Fitness team in in second place. Caught his teammate did take the opening race of the evening, but in this feature race, he's just fallen backwards. Just hasn't had the pace once the fuel has been chucked into the car, and finds himself in P6. Also had a little bit of bad luck as well. Just looking through the field, looks like Crab and Duro fairly close together. Thornton and Eaton, now that gap has come down as well. Now Eaton's about to cross the line. 106.5. Now what time is Thornton going to set? A 105.0. That's very, very close to the fastest lap of the race. We might see Thornton put Eaton under a lot of pressure towards the back end of this race. Now Thornton has had pace all night long, but particularly in this feature race, he has not been able to use it because he's been stuck behind slower cars and he's been battling people, particularly Duro in this one. But now he's in a bit of clear air. He's got some fresh tyres on board. He wants to get after Eaton and at least get a P7. With that kind of pace, though, he could have found himself possibly even in the top 5, but still, you do want to give yourself a target towards the end of a long race like this, and his is only a couple seconds up the road. It is catchable, and visually, I think, each sector you can see that Shell V-Power DJR Team Penske car just get closer and closer. And then, yeah, as I said, behind them, Crab and Duro not too far apart. Ches is a little bit further back. Looks like he's had an adventure or two, actually. A little bit of damage on the front and sides of that thing, but he's had an okay race. Down there in 11th place. But Eaton and Thornton will be the next big battle on the circuit. As you can see, only separate probably about 1.5, 2 seconds now. We don't have the timing because they're a lap down. Still got Brock in the pits and Payne in the pits. They're probably just looking just to sit in the pits and pick up points instead of just DNFing. But 2 non-finishers in, or confirmed non-finishers in Birchall and Keane. So one of the super cheap cars out of this one. Bit of a shame because they've both had pace in this one, but Birchall, as you can see, out of this one. Also got Munro and Hall actually very, very close together as well. So it looks like Hall, he's been putting in some solid lap times. And Munro on very, very worn tyres at this stage. He did pit on lap 50. He's still got to go another couple more laps. And we've got Thornton, 104.8, setting, I think that's the fastest lap of the race. If not, it'd be very, very close to it. It's absolutely flying at the moment. That would have put him almost on the, I'm pretty sure it would have put him on the front row, or very, very, at least on the second row. So he's flying out there. He'd probably be kicking himself if he didn't do that in qualifying. But a couple laps to go. He's giving himself every opportunity to nick P7 right at the end. And fellow Mustang driver Eaton here. You can see a bit of a short shift there at turn 6. Doesn't want to spin up the rear tyres. Takes a wider entry for turn 7. So he can get on the power a little bit earlier. So he closes in just a little bit. Be conservative for 10 and 11. Both on very, very wide, but you can see Thornton able to hit the apex. Eaton a little bit sideways and in fact wide, and there it is. Thornton now up and past Eaton after charging him down and setting some very, very quick lap times, and still a 105.8 despite being stuck behind Eaton there. And also got Crab and Duro battling it out. So Duro setting his personal best 105.6. He wants to make it 3 Ford Mustangs in the top 10. Crab very, very defensive at turn 1. And the way he positioned his car there, giving Duro absolutely no chance to get by. So it's not a battle for the lead. No battle for the lead. That's pretty much settled, but plenty of battles going on at the moment. We've got Munro and Hall. We've had Thornton just get by Eaton. We've also got Crab and Duro duking it out. Now, can Munro and his tyres hold on? Probably struggling for fuel as well. Actually, no, he shouldn't be struggling for fuel because he did see drivers get 36, 37 laps, but there is going to be a lap traffic in the way. That's, I think that's Ches. Ches got to watch out because he's got Bradshaw right there with him. Leader starting the final lap as you hear. Hall trying to go around the outside, now trying to get Munro on the switchback to no avail. But Munro a little bit wide there. Can allow Hall to close in. Now, how does Munro exit the final corner? A little bit of an earlier turn in. In fact, he's exited that quite nicely. He's exited better than Hall. It's the middle sector, though, where Munro has to hold on. No mistake at turn 1. And then just hold on for dear life at 5 and 6. And then he should bring it home. We've actually got Ches into the pits as well. I don't know why he's pitting. So something's happened there. He's in fact just parked sideways. So I don't know what's happened there. Missed his pit box or something. But Matt Cotter coming out of the final corner. So he will take the feature race here. An important victory for his championship hopes and for Penrite Erebus Racing in the Teams Championship. Delaney will take a comfortable P2 in the end with some nice strategy and some nice driving, although we may see a stewards inquiry due to that incident between himself and Reed in the midpoint of the race. Munro, though, just trying to hold on for dear life. He's going defensive at the final corner. Hall's going to try and go around the outside. A little bit of sideways action from Munro, though, and it's going to be a drag, quite fittingly, to the line, and it's going to be Hall, I think. He's just going to steal it, is he? No! The Nissan holds on no, Hall did take it. Hall did take it. At least on our screen, he did take it. But just to recap, Delaney taking second, Reed taking third. On my screen, it says that Hall has taken fourth by an absolute photo finish and by a hair. Munro dropping to fifth at the death. Courtsham taking P6. He'll be a little bit disappointed after his effort in the sprint race. Thornton will take P7 in the end. And he's just drifting it to the start-finish line. She got eaten out there as well, sort of driving around there in 8th place. So Crab will finish in 9th. Duro finishing in 10th place, followed by Lauder, Dominiak, Ches, Runch, Bradshaw, Brock finishing in the pits. Payne also finishing in the pits, and Keane and Birchall both being non-finishers. Well, certainly some very, very interesting racing in this one. Some strategy involved for a number of the drivers, but once again, consistency playing key. Matt Cotter was certainly the most consistent driver out there, taking the victory in the feature race. Delaney taking P2, Reed taking P3. And certainly a number of drivers out there probably kicking themselves with a number of mistakes and incidents they got caught up in. I think Reed would be one of them, and certainly Courtsham will probably be one of them as well. Obviously, he was running in the top 5, top 4 early on in the race, but just faded, and I do believe he got caught up in an incident as well, which dropped him down the field. Same with Thornton as well. Pretty good qualifying effort. Had very, very good pace in the race, but just got stuck behind people and caught up in incidents which dropped him down the field early. And was able to recover to P7, but on another day, if he didn't have those errors early on and get stuck behind people, he could have been contending for a top 5. But Crab taking very well-earned P9, and Duro rounding out the top 10. Well, I think that'll just about do us here. But once again, we'll just go over the calendar here. The AK Racing Supercars Championship for Season 3. There will be another season following this one. There will be, I do believe off the top of my head, about a month's break between this season and Season 4. And with Season 4, what is proposed at the moment is just a little bit of a shake-up with some international tracks and different, and possibly even some different formats as well chucked in, just to spice things up as well. But as you can see on the screen, just a reminder that in a couple weeks' time, we'll be heading to Eastern Creek / Sydney Motorsport Park on March 29th, and then it's enduro time with the Bend taking place on April 12th, the first of the Enduros, and then the Bathurst 1000 on April 26th. And then May 10th, Gold Coast and Sandown, rounding out the Endurance Cup on May 24th, and the season finale on June 7th. Alright, well, from myself, Lewis Wedding, and from obviously everybody here at AK Racing, I hope you enjoyed this broadcast of Round 6 of the AK Racing Supercar Championship from Hidden Valley. You hope to catch you in 2 weeks' time, but until then, have a good one.